Baruch Hashem, you're a bad Jew.
It's another Wednesday, which means it's another episode of Bad Jew, the place where there is no such thing as a bad Jew. That's right. If you're listening to this and you don't know a single thing about Judaism, guess what? You're not a bad Jew. And there's no such thing as a bad Jew. There never has been, there never will be. With me today is Reb Adam, hailing all the way from Israel. Reb Adam, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Seriously.
Yeah, no,
Thank you so much.
It's a real treat to have you. And, I got to tell you that when I first started this journey and I created the Bad Jew Instagram account, the first thing I did was like wondering who's in my space. And your face was one of the first faces I saw. And you had these really cool tribute videos talking about Kabbalah and the overall comprehension of it. And these like kind of out there ideas. And so I'm really excited to explore that with you today. But before we do that, we have the 4-minute Bad Jew challenge where you tell your life story in 4 minutes. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Sure?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Ehad, Shtayim,
Let's do it
Shalosh,
for this.
Yallah. Here we go. Go for it.
Okay, great. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs to former Soviet Union parents. My father from Ukraine, my mother from Russia. It was all the same back then. They instilled within me a very strong sense of Jewish pride, but because of their Soviet upbringing, they couldn't give me much in terms of the practice. I was one of 3 Jews generally in my public schooling, and I had relatively no Jewish friends growing up, other than maybe a family friend or 2. All my friends growing up were Mexican, my amigos, my boys. It was a good time. Their parents made good salsa, I must say. And throughout the time, I kind of always had this like deep intuitive sense of something above me in my upbringing, but I was also a very curious kid. So I went through a bit of an atheist phase right before my bar mitzvah where I said, there is no God. I don't want any of this. I'm not Jewish. And my dad said, good for you. Keep asking questions. You're on the right path. You'll figure it out. You'll come full circle one day. So a bit of atheism, a bit of agnosticism. And then as I continued to ask questions, I came to a theistic philosophy. And then I took a decent amount of psychedelics in my late teens and had transcendental experiences and said, there has to be something beyond me. And I got into the New Age community and a lot of New Age teachings for a solid 5 years. I mean, I was going to yoga events, working on my chakras, stones, crystals, you name it. All the while, though, I was learning some Kabbalah. Why? My father has been learning since I was 6 years old. Even as a secular man, he connected to some institution that was teaching it openly and freely and publicly. So I was very exposed from a young age. And I dipped a little bit here and there, but never got so deep. But as the pains of my life continued in my young adulthood of a lack of actualization, dealing with particularly like, let's say, a pot addiction, 5 years, morning till night, which equated to a lot of lack of actualization, anxiety, depression. I was suicidal at some point. I was heavily contemplating jumping off a 6-story building of my condo. And among other things of going ups and downs and all arounds and just not fulfilling my potential. So in the darkness, I was looking for light. And I saw a lot of that in Kabbalah, what I was learning at the time. And something about it sparked a bit more within my soul than the other teachings that I was also learning simultaneously with it. I went on Birthright as well when I was 21. Amazing. I was the only person out of the 42 group at the closing circle ceremony that said, I'm making Aliyah. And I almost did then. I almost joined the army, did my service and the whole thing. But for whatever reason, I came back home and was comfortable and stuck there until another 2 years, where the pains of life, I was inspired to ask the Creator to send me some type of answer, some type of deepening of my understanding of the self. So he brought me within a month, answered my prayer very directly, brought me to Israel, where I learned in yeshiva or samech for 2 years full time. Then I moved to this amazing city, Kiryat Yarim, to live in the Ashlag Hasidus community with my Rebbe, who's one of the greatest Kabbalists in the world, and continued my studies also full time, 10 hours a day for the past 3 years. And the past year, I've been professionally coaching founders, CEOs, visionaries, you name it. It's been a lot of fun, and also been doing group coaching events as well, teaching Kabbalah in a practical, psychological, and self-developmental way. So that's the short story.
Wow. And you use those 4 minutes perfectly. Great job.
Thank you.
And,
That's right.
and I think my favorite thing about this challenge is that when people are put under pressure to tell their life story in 4 minutes, it's a lot of years to summarize into what, 200 and, oh my God,
40.
math, 240 seconds, right?
Yeah.
That's not easy to do, but you shared a lot of vulnerabilities there. Like, you shared a lot about some of your history, and I just want to thank you for being honest and talking about that the journey hasn't been, a clear linear path. And that's actually one of my favorite things, that I hope there's a listener out there that, they might be struggling, that they might feel like an outcast, that they might feel like there's not really a place for them in this Jewish world. And that someone like you might be able to introduce the fact that no one has a clear cut start. And that just because I might look and present a certain way doesn't mean I've always been like this, and that my life is a journey too. I think that's really beautiful. So, Reb Adam, thank you again for just being vulnerable. Be sure, if you are listening, to go onto rebadam.com. That is REB as in boy, Adam.com. He has coaching, Kabbalah teachings there. But speaking of Kabbalah teachings, we need to learn about the Kabbalah. That's what this episode's about. So, Reb Adam, what is the Kabbalah? We've heard about this thing. Is it really a book of magic? Is it mysticism? What is it exactly?
Yes, it's a book of magic. I've been waiting for someone to call me onto a podcast so we can make cows together and have kosher cheeseburgers.
Yes, let's go.
Yes. So Kabbalah is a study. It's a learning. It is the deepest interpretation and level of Torah interpretation. We speak about the 4 levels of Torah interpretation. There is the pshat, the surface level, basic understanding, the obvious understanding. There's remez, which is the hint. There's drush, which is the allegorical. And there's sod, which is the secret. And the secret has to do with Kabbalah, in large part Hasidut as well, which is drawn from Kabbalistic wisdom. So it is not a book in itself, though it has primary books that it's based off of, let's say, the Holy Zohar, which traditionally, let's say in the religious community, we believe that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai wrote it. In the academic community, there is a debate where Rabbi Moshe de Leon of 13th century Spain had written it because he found it, being used as wrappings for fish in the market, and bought all of the wrappings and put them together into the book. So it is, if I can summarize practically for this generation, it is an exacting methodology for one to discover oneself in the deepest sense of the psyche regarding our desires, being split into our egoism and our potential for altruism, our desire to receive for ourselves alone, our desire to give and share with others, and the myriads of details in between as well, because there's levels within levels. There's nuances to what I like to call the infinite onion of our ego. Not only does it allow us to discover that about ourselves, but once we discover that within ourselves, we also have tools to see and understand the world as a whole better. But the whole point of Kabbalah, just to summarize in short, is self-transformation. We want to go from egoists and become altruists. We want to go from serving only ourselves alone to loving, forgiving, and being compassionate to the other in a way that is not self-serving, rather just out of pure love and intention for the other, which is a tall order. But Kabbalah describes the fact that we're here means it's possible for us to achieve that.
Okay. So it's interesting because you described it as an exacting science. Is that how you said it? I
Yeah.
just wanted to go back and understand that more. So you're saying that the Kabbalah has almost like a science or a math equation? Like, we all know 1 + 1 = 2. Are you saying that there are certain elements where if you add them together, that you create self-discovery very easily?
When you get into the breakdown of spiritual principles and what it looks like in our innermost psyche, like what is happening when we deflect something that is not serving us and we say no, and we have healthy boundaries. What does it look like when we actually step into the compassionate and empathic sense of self and for the other and express that. And what does that look like behind the veil? When I say science, I mean this exact thing, because there is a very scientific, nearly mathematical part of Kabbalah that breaks down the systems of spiritual reality, which is not something outside of the self, says Bal HaSulam. Rather, it's all describing you. Chaz, it's describing you. Meaning it's the inner workings of your psyche. Though there's also the other side being the workings of the heart and emotion and intention. So there's like the sciences, if you were to compare it to university, and there's the humanities, both sides of Kabbalah, which really work in tandem. You need one in order to complement the other and to have a harmony.
Fascinating. Now, it's funny though, because you describe a harmony between these two aspects of the Torah, but the reality is that the Torah and the books within it constantly are debating itself. Not to mention, humans are constantly debating Hashem and compromising with Hashem, right? So how could it be harmony? Is there not a single part in the Kabbalah that completely contradicts a part of the Talmud or the Mishnah or any of that?
Great question. I mean, if you want to go there, the Talmud and the Mishnah itself has arguments between Chazal, between these great spiritual masters of those generations, where you seemingly have, opposite opinions. And at the end, we see that all opinions in those contexts are true. It's relative to the level of a person's consciousness. For example, let's say someone is on an outreach group. They're going to Israel for a couple of weeks to learn. And they're in a Beit Midrash learning, Talmud for the first time. And they scream from across the Beit Midrash, from across the study hall, "Rabbi, I have a question, come here." For that gentleman, that's a mitzvah. It could be the first time in his life that he's requesting help from a superior to get some greater perspective in some type of deep concept. For someone who, let's say, has had a bit more exposure or is born in the community, to yell from across the room to a honorable superior in that fashion would be probably considered a misalignment or a sin, if you want to use that language. So the point is that it's relative. When you have Beit Hillel, which is talking from the side of compassion, it's relative to where we are today. When you're talking about Beit Shammai, which is the strict judgment and pure truth, we're talking about the elevation of consciousness where we're so evolved that we're able to handle that bitter, strong truth because we have the vessel, so to speak, to be able to absorb it. So what might seem to be a contradiction just needs to be understood, because the essence of Kabbalah is to come and unify all of creation. And what that means practically is that the separation and the darkness is part and parcel to the light. It's all part of one cohesive system. It's not totally separate. So when you see contradiction at the end stage, it's also part of the revelation to coming to an understanding, coming to a knowledge, coming to an embodying of the principles.
Fascinating. So I think I'll need an example though, because you're describing some really large abstract ideas that from this view, it sounds grand and awesome, but to me, it still doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's really fascinating. That's why I've always been fascinated with Kabbalah, but haven't really dug deeper. So is there a specific practical example where the Kabbalah has an impact on day-to-day life?
So let's take the therapeutic mindset shift that the darkness is just a bigger light that has yet to be revealed. Let's say someone goes through some tough traumas, but they really do the work over whatever amount of time with said therapists, coaches, leaders, inner work, and they really go through the process of turning that darkness into light and stepping into that growth mindset. In hindsight, once they do that work, they will see, hopefully in the ideal, that darkness and that pain of the past was the vessel to experience the greatest light of the now.
Mm.
It is those who have experienced the blood, sweat, and tears of life that are able to step on stage and potentially inspire millions. It's an extreme example that it's coming to bring the principle that the darkness, if used correctly, if worked on, if transformed through the tools, with at the basic level being everything is for us. Everything is to bring us to the ultimate good. Everything is in essence light, just not fully revealed yet. So then we see that the trauma is a light that is yet to be revealed, assuming the person does the work and becomes a greater person, becomes an advocate, and is helping other people who have been through that. So you can see in the big picture just how impactful and how much light that trauma was in the big picture.
So
Does that
I
make
think that's
sense?
really, yeah, no, it does make a lot of sense. And the idea of darkness being a bigger light than we understand is something that I think for me can be very relevant depending on what chapter of my life you're looking at. I mean, the most obvious one that comes to my mind right now is that I remember in my last relationship that I was in, okay, the last relationship I was in, there was a big day where we were supposed to celebrate my dad's birthday. And my girlfriend had actually met up with my parents first. And then I was driving separately because we're coming from different directions to go meet up with them. What ended up happening was on the way over to my dad's birthday, my car broke down. The entire dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. I had to pull to the side of the road under the underpass of a freeway, and AAA came. And
Wow.
luckily, my parents and my girlfriend were there for me. So this wasn't a particularly dark day, but it was a huge inconvenience. And what
Mhm.
ended up happening was my car broke down. And in that month, I actually didn't have a car, which meant that I was seeing my girlfriend a lot less. And by seeing my girlfriend a lot less, I suddenly got this chance to kind of look at it from above and see what was working and what was not. It was like a step back, a breath of fresh air to realize what's actually working and what are the things that I've been ignoring that haven't been working. And
Mhm.
in doing so, it kind of revealed to me these truths that I was ignoring. And in doing so, I remember weeks leading up to the breakup, I was just stressed out of my mind because I was contemplating what this next chapter is going to take of me to step into. Like, what is it going to require, willpower wise, to get past this difficult point? And the breakup, actually, in hindsight, was pretty smooth in comparison. But I remember everything leading up to it, all the mental preparation I had to do to get to that point was
Yeah.
taxing. It was very, very taxing.
Mhm.
And the next day, after it was over, I did a little happy dance in my room because I finally felt like me. And so, and that's like the one that I could relate to in that sense. That really makes a lot of sense. But
Yes.
as far as practicality goes, I'm only 28 years old. Something I read online, something that I heard from someone else is that you're only supposed to learn Kabbalah at the age of 40 years old. First of all, why is 40 a significant number? And second of all, why do you have to wait so long to even start cracking open a book and reading?
That's a great question. So we learn through the Kabbalists, particularly Rabbi Ashlag of blessed memory, who is called the Baal HaSulam. He has dictionaries, little dictionaries that he wrote of what we call the language of root and branch, meaning to say the entire Tanakh, the Talmud, the Zohar, the words of our sages in general are written to whatever degree in code. And that code is speaking about you, meaning it's speaking about us on a personal level. So all the numbers are alluding to certain spiritual levels. When I say spiritual levels, I mean the level of consciousness of being more giving, altruistic, compassion, and so forth, stepping away from that animal nature of being only for the self and more into the divine nature of being for the other. So 40 means something. 40 is a special number Kabbalistically. There's many times that 40 is mentioned. You have 40 years in the desert. You have 40 days up on Mount Sinai with Moshe. Many times that 40 is mentioned. And 40, just, to keep it very simple, because this is pretty technical stuff, is a level of consciousness that can be described as giving to give, meaning one is giving to the other without any intention for the self. I'm just giving to the other because I purely love them. Meaning, normally we do charity and we do favors for others. At the very least, on a subconscious level, I'm going to get reward for this. Maybe in this world, maybe in the next. I'm going to get my mitzvah points, my heaven points. There's something subconsciously where we are counting the good deeds that we're doing in hopes that we're going to get some high fives when we go up to heaven. But Kabbalah breaks it down in a very deep way that it's not so simple. The level of recognition and awareness that we have to have for what's going on internally is much deeper. And there's many, as I mentioned, levels within levels, one step at a time that we can learn this. So 40 is alluding to a very high level, the level of a tzaddik, the level of righteous master who's already refined themselves and elevated themselves to the point where they are giving out of the pure love in their heart, now with any intention to receive any reward. The service itself is the reward. So what 40 years old means through the language of root and branches, once an individual has reached this state, now they are refined enough in order to learn Kabbalah. And that was true in older generations. I will quote Rabbi Breitowitz, who is one of the most famous English-speaking rabbis in the world. He's also got a weekly Q&A that's quite famous, and I had the merit of learning from him a lot in my time at Or Sameach. Still keep up with him today through email. Rabbi Breitowitz said that in a generation of the greatest darkness, we need the greatest light. He said Bubby and Zaidi, grandma and grandpa, did not need Kabbalah. They could get the refinement of character through the Talmud, through learning the halacha. That was enough for them to become good people. He said in this generation, with the acceleration of technology and distraction and so forth, not the case. There's no chance to refine ourselves at the deepest level through only the surface level of the Torah. We need the deeper aspects because it's the biggest lights that the Torah has to offer. There's this inverse relationship. So because it's more dark, we need the greater light. So that 40 years old, even if we were to take it literally, is no longer relevant in our generation.
Fascinating. So is it really just technology that has made that principle irrelevant? And it also sounds like this rabbi, what's the rabbi's name again? One more time.
Rabbi Yitzchak Breitowitz.
Breitowitz. So Rabbi Breitowitz, it really sounds like he has a mission to do what he can to bring mysticism that fights back, if you will, against the tides of technology that have taken away from that. Is that what that's implying essentially?
Not particularly. I mean, he's a proponent for all levels of Torah. He's really a galaxy brain. I've seen him many times in Q&A. He will bring, 15, 20 sources to answer one question. He's a really amazing, amazing soul and has a wondrous love for everyone. Really just exudes it. If you watch the video, you'll sense his love for humanity. So he was just speaking on an actual video on YouTube called What is Kabbalah? And he was answering this question. That's one of the things that he said was in the times of the greatest darkness, we need the greatest lights. He didn't say specifically technology, but I have heard in other contexts where he mentioned technology and what that might imply in terms of difficulties of our generations and bad habits and so forth that get a person locked into something that is not conducive for their self-development or growth. I think in terms of the distractions, the media, everyone has their doom loops in social media and so forth. We have enough to bring us away from that true inner fulfillment and calm that we have the ability to access through actually honing in and anchoring to what we need to do, which is develop ourselves, transform ourselves.
And ultimately, that's what the Kabbalah is about. It's about introducing a book. I mean, let's get rid of the words mysticism and magic and all these different ideas for a second, because I think that we hear these buzzwords about this thing called the Kabbalah for some time. There are conspiracy theories around it that I've heard from non-Jews, because non-Jews love to take Jewish things and turn it into a conspiracy, right? So it really, when you peel back the layers of the reputation it has, the book itself really sounds like it's more about having a deeper understanding and interpretation. You mentioned the 4 levels, right? So a deeper understanding, a deeper interpretation, and then actually going into self-discovery so that way you could emit infinite love. Is that's
the ideal. And just for full clarity, Kabbalah is a area of study. It's not a specific book. There are the major books of Kabbalah, which would be like the Zohar or the Eitz Chaim, the Tree of Life by the Arizal. But there's many, many books under the umbrella of Kabbalah, just for full clarity. And yes, it is in order to elevate and develop us to be more giving, loving, and considerate of the other, more understanding of ourselves and where we're actually coming from, because we can live a life that is wondrously giving with lots of philanthropy. But if we're not cognizant that at least a subconscious level, let alone a conscious level, that there is actually a mixed intention and we also want to receive for ourselves,
Mhm.
then we're never actually passing the threshold into what is the ideal, that quantum leap, so to speak, of consciousness, where we can give freely. This is the definition of freedom, according to Kabbalah, to be free from the shackles of the ego that keep us down into only serving ourselves. Kabbalah provides
Makes
those tools.
makes a lot of sense. So thank you for explaining that. You're a guy who lives and breathes by this. You're a guy who you've created your own private business, rebadam.com, right?
Mhm.
To coach people through it and whatnot. You make content about this on a regular basis. What is something you wish more people knew about the Kabbalah?
I wish they knew how accessible it was. And I wish they knew that they shouldn't be scared of learning it. They should be more scared of not learning it. And we are not advocating for anyone to skip steps. In my school, we are very adamant about a person starting from literally ground zero, 0.1, 0.2, and working through their learning slowly but surely, one step at a time. There's no concern of going crazy or thinking something that is beyond oneself. It is, I would argue, the most healthy thing that we can do in this generation, because we can actually learn about ourselves. And here's why I think that's so important. There's a lot of conversation right here, right now, in our generation about the need for the Jewish people to come to unity, peace, and love. But I would challenge, as I've heard from my rabbi, that it's a bumper sticker. We have seen a lot of unity, unfortunately, due to the great pains and atrocities that we witness. But it doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to experience pain and atrocity in order to finally come together and to go from baseless hatred into baseless love. Kabbalah provides us the tools to attempt to go on that road towards baseless love. If we want to be soul doctors of ourselves, it needs to be learned. Why is it that we go to university to get a degree for 4, 6, 8, 12 years? We speak a lot about love and peace and unity. I think that needs an even deeper learning and a deeper practice. So it can't just be conversation. It can't just be roundtable. There needs to be something that is a bit more tangible and integral, one step at a time, where we can really see a lasting transformation for our people, because that's what we're here to do, is to connect to each other and love each other as oneself, as the Torah describes.
It's beautiful. Besides the work that you've done on yourself with either a fellow classmate, with either a client of yours, what kind of impact or change have you seen from someone studying the Kabbalah?
I've seen absolute transformation of one's habits, one's outlooks, one's ability to employ tools and navigate through their pains and their traumas, and to be able to transmute, alchemize, to use some new age terminology, that darkness into light, as we spoke about. I mean, that's certainly the case for myself. I can say that again and again experientially in terms of what I experienced, how much of a transformation I personally have been given by the creator through my learning and my environment, what I was able to do to develop. For clients as well, even a short amount of time, I've seen people clear traumas. I've seen people change major habits. I've seen people finally start to achieve 2, 3, 4 goals that they've been pushing aside for years, as early as a month. And some of that's with basic methodology as far as coaching is concerned, and just being a charismatic, inspirational person that, invites the person to step into their best selves. But it also is part and parcel due to the wisdom that I also bring along in that process. There's something I find to be most therapeutic and self-developmental about this wisdom. So I've seen it again and again and hope to continue to see it for everyone.
Well, I think that's beautiful way to explain that people truly grow from this. And it's not just, oh, I learned this concept today, sound a little different. It's really making, you know, monumental change in their journey through, again, the deeper understanding. These 4 layers of understanding this Torah and getting to the secret, as you said, is really beautiful. It's really amazing. I want to thank you, Reb Adam, for getting on here and putting your
Yeah.
best foot forward with us and showing us this amazing thing we call Kabbalah. Reb Adam, what is the best way for people to follow you, connect with you, reach out to you?
Yeah. I'm a Reb Adam Yitzchak on all social media platforms. The easiest way to find me through all those platforms is just to go to my website, rebadam.com. You can set up a free discovery call, for example, and see if you're a fit for my coaching services. You can just DM me if you'd like through any of the social media platforms, or email me at adam@rebadam.com for any questions you might have. I'm here to serve and support the community. I mean, thank God I've been blessed with upwards of 40,000 followers through all platforms in the past year. And I have a decent amount of inbound, but I still do my best to respond to everyone at some point. I do prioritize my clients in terms of, just responding to voice notes and whatnot. But I really try to be there for people. People need it. And I just want to end with some quick book recommendations because I think people are asking to themselves who are listening to this right now. Where do I start? What do I learn? What do I do? So if you go on my website, there's a book there. There's an ebook called Spiritual Principles. I believe it is a wonderful 101. It's a really, really great introduction that really gives you the breakdown of what Kabbalah is and what Judaism is through the lens of Kabbalah. Additionally, I would recommend Giving, the Essential Teachings of the Kabbalah, translated by Arya Siegel. Find it on Amazon, as well as Tapestry for the Soul, the Introduction to the Zohar, as translated by Yedida Cohen, one of my favorites, read it many times over. Those are my 3 main recommendations to start.
Awesome. Great recommendations. Be sure to go to rebadam.com for those recommendations. And by the way, I want to point out for those who want to reach out to Reb Adam, I DM'd him on Instagram. I kind of did it not expecting him to respond. I think, not even kidding, you probably responded, a couple hours later. And I remember when it happened, I was shocked because, again, like when I first entered into the space of social media to see who was in my space doing Jewish content, you were one of the first faces that popped up. You've been such a major voice in the online Jewish space. And I want to commend you for all the work that you're doing and for the consistent content you're putting out there. And thanks again for being on Bad Jew, the place where there's no such thing as a bad Jew. And to the listeners, thank you for listening. Please be sure to leave your comments, your reviews, to like and subscribe this podcast. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much, Chaz. All the best.
Shalom.